Martin Atkinson, I think, has got the red card out. Well, that didn't last long.
Canio, it's Payet! He's done it!
Own way of dealing with the situation. Maybe the fans are feeling something, and then the players can also feel that the fans are not weak there.
It's onside! Shaqiri! Oh, what a fantastic finish! On the feet around Old Trafford. Oh, goodness!
Hello everyone, welcome to the Straight Red, where we program our cars to auto-accelerate. It's been a crazy week. We've had a lot of questions from the masses of followers that we have asking what's happened to episode 4 and 5. They're in the process of being uploaded. I think 4 is already up and 5 will be up real short. We know you're gagging for it, so keep an eye out for that and we'll send out the links. Let's not waste any time. Let me introduce you to the first team again. We've got Cass, Matt, Neil, and Wiss with me, and special guest Aaron, who's going to join us to give us some insight on Tottenham. Well, we're all laced up, boys. Let's get on with this week's post-match presser. Game week 6, fellas. Last week we saw 36 goals. This time, 31 goals, and what a cracking bunch they were. Why don't we get straight into it and start off with Arsenal-Chelsea, who've managed to find winning ways, but convincingly. They've been playing pretty subpar, but getting results, scoring goals unconvincingly. Yet against Chelsea, they've looked really good, like their former selves. What's going on, fellas?
Whew. What a game. What a weekend. It made my entire weekend. I'm sure it did the same for Matt too. It was just a phenomenal weekend all around.
I think it's still making your whole week with some at this point. It's all we've been hearing about.
The champagne is still pouring, my friend.
Why was it such an important fixture?
You know, the history. The history of it, I think, just made it. Yeah, you have the geographical competition, but at the same time, there's always animosity between Arsenal and Chelsea. Well, before it was the Mourinho-Wenger controversy with the whole sort of tussle on the sidelines, and now it's always a very competitive game. And, we haven't beaten Chelsea in a while, and to do it in this fashion also just was like a sweet, sweet cherry on top.
And also, Matt, I was just going to say that there are a lot of teams out there which do have a strong rivalry, which probably equals what Arsenal and Chelsea have. Liverpool, City, but Chelsea is still a good team, so perhaps that had something to do with it.
Yeah, I think on paper you're seeing a Chelsea team that's looking pretty good. It's nice to have the whole Mourinho-Wenger debate or debacle or whatever you want to call it between two other teams, because now we get a more of a pure, respectful, footballing show when you have those two teams line up. But yeah, I mean, there are a few things key points in the match that I think made it and broke it. So I think it really, it came down to a few key points. And
three points, was it, Matt?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
All in the first half, right, Matt?
2 in the first 14.
Oh, you're talking about the goals. Yes, those 3 goals. Yeah, but the 3 points definitely came at the end of the game. When we lost.
What was what was the main issue with Chelsea?
Defense for me. Defense and actually midfield. Not enough coverage for the shitty defense. Oh, sorry, are we allowed to say that? We can beat that, hopefully. For the poor defensive display on Chelsea's. Obviously, I'm feeling very passionate about it, but no, I think yeah, it's just a breakdown in the defense and the midfield. They were playing too compressed at times to where you'd have the defense when they did get the ball and did do something with the ball that wasn't a failed back pass. They would get.
We lost you, Matt, but I think you brought up a really good point. Because Arsenal were struggling previously with a defensive issue, and it seemed today that it seemed over the weekend that they were solidified, and that was the domino effect that caused them to play really well with the free flowing style that they used. We had David Luiz and Gary Cahill, so we were effectively playing with 13 men. So it's very uneven, and we've seen this Arsenal before, so there is nothing new yet. But it was good to see them win. What happens to Chelsea?
The attack finally kick in as well. I mean, I think we were discussing even before the game. It was just we weren't very convinced by the attack before the game. But I mean, they proved us wrong. But we'll see how they last throughout the next few games as well. But Sanchez up top, still convincing against other big teams. How are they going to fare against Man United or Man City in the future? That's going to be a bigger challenge now.
I think, yeah, totally, Wes. I want to move on and talk about the Middlesbrough-Tottenham result where they won 2-1, at Middlesbrough. And it's very, very important. Only Tottenham and Man City remain undefeated. And whereas City have gone on and won all the 6 games, Tottenham haven't done that, but they've got an outstanding defensive record. I think only allowing 3 goals or something like that in the last few games. So what that means is that defense is very key. And if you look through the table, you'll see that the goal difference is going to have a massive impact on who finishes where at the end of this season. Aaron, why don't you give us your take on this victory and maybe talk about Son and his rising and as a player and what he's doing for the team, especially with Harry Kane out?
Sure. To be honest, like overall, the whole game, I wasn't really impressed with Spurs, but I'm encouraged because we had 4 starters out. It's like Rose, Dyer, Dembele, and Kane were all out.
Key players.
So we kind of had 4 out of our normal starting 11 weren't playing, and we had other guys step in and play. Wanyama filled in pretty excellently and protected that back line and helped us keep that, I guess, give up only the 3rd goal of the season so far. And Son, my God, like I think some Spurs groups have started calling him the Korean Jesus, and it might really be the second coming. I think I was on both goals. So that was pretty fantastic. Before the season, I kind of thought that he might give Kane a run for his money on leading scorer for the club, and especially if Kane's injury persists for a while, I think that's probably going to hold up.
Now he has a history. He dropped out of high school. He went to Hamburg and he came up with the academy there. So he's very experienced in the Bundesliga, and they scored some amazing goals out there. You could see that in his touch and the goals he's been scoring. The second goal he scored, you could argue if that didn't go in, he was dealing with the ball. He was dribbling in the area. He had some options to pass, but he pulled it off, and he's got a very, very good shot on him. Where do you go from here? You're second in the table. You've conceded the least goals. You're out. You don't have Harry Kane with you, but you've got Son. Do you feel comfortable, confident moving forward with your schedule? And where are you going to go in the next 5-6 games? How many points are you going to get out of the next 4 games, let's say?
I think we can aim for 10. I'm the only one that's really, really concerning right now for me is City. But, yeah, with Brunia out, I think that's a big boon to us. And we should be getting Dyer and Dembele back. Kane's injury looks like it's not going to be as bad as it looked like initially, and Rose is on his way back, so he should be starting out at full health pretty soon. And for the North London Derby, everyone should be back, so I'm really looking forward to that game. I think Spurs fans, no matter how well we start, that'll kind of be the gauge that we judge the first half of the season by.
It's almost as if these fixtures have been rigged, right across this, third of the way through the season, then you get this huge matchup. And oftentimes, just before Christmas, these things can decide what happens after Christmas in the new year. So good result, and obviously getting the goals and the points, which are huge. Thanks, Aaron. Why don't we go on and talk about Liverpool thrashing Hull? They can't seem to keep their hands off the ball. They can't keep their hands off the ball. It's like Sunday League soccer with the 7-year-olds. Changes. I got the ball. What's going on, Neil? How much are you paying? And they're obviously getting the checks.
I think
the game can be broken down into two components. I mean, first would be one, offensively we look. The first goal, I think, was really impressive. I mean, I think we saw Coutinho show what he can do when he's not striking the ball. He set up Lallana for an excellent shot. I'm very encouraged by his performance as of late. Lallana finally seems to be hitting his stride in the way that I think we all wanted him to. He's scoring goals. He's all the players around him, and it's really just elevated his game in a way that we need him to be playing at. You know, kind of dictated the rest of the entire match, right? I mean, once again putting themselves in a position where they cannot. I mean, 2 handballs, 2 red cards in consecutive weeks. Unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before as a soccer fan. You know, Mane found himself in all the right places, and you know, the shot by Coutinho was an excellent shot. I think it would have been a goal, and had he not put his arm out and deflected it, you know, it would have gone in. But deliberate handball, in my opinion. I don't think there was any way that you could call it otherwise. And then, you know, the rest is history, right? I mean, with an attack power like Liverpool against the 10-man Hull, expect to happen after that. I mean, it was goal on goal. I was a little discouraged by the goal Hull scored in the second half. That kind of felt like
typical Liverpool.
Yeah, exactly. The pre-Klopp Liverpool, and I don't think any fan wants to see that. But Coutinho, I mean, he silenced that right away with a spectacular goal, and that, you know, the victory would come, and it was a good match. We need to keep scoring. Klopp has come out and said that he wants to make sure that we play memorable football, to quote him, and I think he's achieving that thus far in the season. It's been a good few weeks, I have to say.
So what would you say compared to last season then? I'm really curious your thought about Liverpool last season versus Liverpool this season. What seems to be working? What are they doing differently?
Yeah, I think right now what you're really seeing is just the impact of Klopp to fruition, right? I mean, he's had time to develop his players. He's brought in the players that he thought will most benefit the club. I mean, look at the impact that Mane has had. You know, well, now Wijnaldum, has he played up to par in the way that I wanted him to? No, but I mean, I think he still had important contributions on the pitch. Found a way somehow to patch up the with this makeshift ad hoc, you know, Milner playing left back for some reason still. I really do like Matip. I think he's had 2 excellent performances, one against Chelsea and then another against Hull. I think his presence in partnership with Lovren is going to be really important moving forward. So really, I just think it's the impact of Klopp. Happy that he's really been able to have that impact. I think we all had our questions and doubts. I mean, Liverpool has been a club that's been through of failure, I think, in the last handful of years, and you know, seeing how much we've been able to turn it around now that Klopp has been able to really sink his teeth into the team is super impressive. I mean, I'm really happy.
It's really good, and I think it comes down to the quality of hugs he gives. So, great result. Really good, solid heart.
They matter. They matter, okay? The hugs really do.
So, but coming off of that, what would be a reasonable target for Liverpool this season?
You're talking about end of the season, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, just in terms of building off of what you did last season, building off of a pretty positive start for this season, what do you see?
It's got to be Champions League, right?
Top 4 would be I don't know if we can really contend with the likes of City for a title, but I think top 4 is a realistic for us to shoot for.
At least 6 games in. So
to switch over to my phone. I will be right back.
I would definitely agree with Neil on that. I think top 4 is would be a sustainable target if they once they get up there. Like to some point, to some extent, Liverpool has become or has been fighting with that whole mid-table club for the past couple of years now, and it'll bring them to sort of the elite club or a more of a competitive club now.
Competitive tier. So Liverpool play Swansea next week, and Swansea were thrashed again this week by Man City 3-1. Cass, 6 out of 6 win. I mean,
Neil, glad you were able to join us.
Yeah, me too.
and
The hot box is back.
and it was a great result.
Yeah, of course. You can't go wrong with a away win. Or at times you don't seem to be as sharp as you could be. Aguero scored a very quick goal, but shortly thereafter, the backline had a little bit of trouble with Fernando Llorente. Swansea has some good opportunities on goal. They were playing quite well relative to kind of the opinion about them throughout the season so far. One thing that was really sticking out for me was in the first half you had Kevin De Bruyne on the flank, and he wasn't super effective. It really worked very well for him. And so at halftime they switched them. He went through the middle, and things started gelling. It started working really well, really nice. More opportunities. The game started to open up a little bit, and Aguero got a penalty, which you could argue it was a little bit soft, potentially. Because there are a few other opportunities where they could have called penalties, but in a game like this, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Ultimately, that last goal by Sterling was a beautiful counterattack. I mean, it's something that we've been expecting to see from him, and maybe Pep's finally starting to bring it out of him.
Yeah.
Last season, he probably wouldn't have finished that opportunity. So some maturity from young Sterling, from young Raheem.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the big news too is De Bruyne came up limp. So he's going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, and those 2-3 weeks. Let's see who you've got lined up. I'm just doing a quick check. So next week, who do you have? You've got Spurs. Spurs away.
Spurs away. It's a big test. I mean, you're putting up the 2 undefeated. So there's an expression: someone's O has to go. I mean, obviously, you can have a draw, so maybe not.
It'll probably be a 0-0 draw.
God, let's hope not.
An entertaining one? Yeah.
I don't think there have been too many entertaining
too, right? Anthony and Spurs too.
What's that? There's some big
there's
injuries for
Champions
both
League
teams.
in there too.
Kane is out, and Champions League, midweek. It's going to be tough. I'm looking at how they perform midweek. I don't think it really has that much of an indication how they'll play end of the week, but Tottenham have a little bit of pressure on them in the Champions League, and they came up good today. Solid. City have a fixture at Celtic. I don't really see that being too difficult.
I'm looking at your schedule, City's schedule right now. It looks like it might be a tricky one. You have Celtic, you have Tottenham, Everton, Barcelona, Southampton, Man United.
Damn.
It's not going to be the easy flow right now.
No, it's a pretty rough patch.
From what I've read, De Bruyne and company should be back for that Barcelona fixture. So not going to be out for too
poor
long.
company. Poor Vincent Company, man. Can't stay healthy. It makes me sad.
No.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle. Yeah.
But so far so good. It's been great start to the season. Can't complain.
Do you have any criticisms of your team that you've been able to identify thus far? What's wrong with City right now, if anything?
Defensively, if you have a strong striker center forward, that can cause some problems for City center backs. We've seen where they've had some defensive lapses. Llorente was having some joy against them.
Great strike from him.
So if you got a guy who's got form and is talented, Tottenham right now have Son. I'd like to see how our center backs do with him. Jansen, I haven't seen too much from. I'm not too worried about him. But Eriksen will be a player to look at in the upcoming fixture. You just want to make sure that you can keep a clean sheet if possible, but also City can score multiple goals where it papers over that issue, I guess.
With that, why don't we go on to the main segment of our ref report this week? The rise of the youth machine. Folks, we've been talking about a lot of these players coming into their prime. There's been some great talent that we grew up with over the last few years, coming into the mid-20s. And we're seeing them come to fruition now. But also, alongside them, it's very important that we develop new talent. So let's talk about that today. Why don't you tell me who you think is coming up? Who are the stars for you today? Let's start with the under 23s. Anyone in particular?
We could talk about Harry Kane. I mean, he's a little bit older now, but if you look at his goal scoring record, he has to have scored close to 50 goals now in the last couple seasons.
Yeah.
He's an English talent,
just hit 50.
Something we haven't seen in a while. So, he's a great story, and he's a Tottenham youth player. They nurtured him. They gave him an opportunity, and they're really going to miss him while he's out injured. England have really relied on him, and he's giving them something to kind of make them less dependent on a player like Rooney.
Well, I think that's just one thing that England's been lacking over the last, however many generations of players that have come through. I think they're missing that pure striker that you get in Harry Kane. So I would agree with you, Cass. It's a good asset.
Oh yeah, and you gotta love the hair. Yeah, it's got a good haircut, unlike a lot of people in the Premier League. So, yeah.
No. So is Andy Carroll still considered a youth player?
What are you insinuating there?
I mean, it's Andy Carroll and Theo Walcott that have been under 19 for like 10 years now. When are they going to come of age? I will take back a.
I mean, Walcott's 26?
28, I think.
Walcott is like 28, yeah.
I don't know if he's that old. I think is he 28?
He's 28, but like Arsene
It's
said,
been like 10 years since they've been playing for Arsenal, but he's still, a little kid.
Yep.
why don't we talk about Rashford? He's 18 years old. This guy's just been improving week after week, and he's teaming up really well with these experienced players on the team too.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love these.
And I think it's so important that players who are on the pitch actually be able to play with the likes of Ibra and Rooney and first team stars so that they can, continue their development. I mean, Rashford, let's be real about his last goal in his match. I mean, that was basically a tap-in, and it was created by those around him. But I think he needs that confidence to continue to be generated, and whether that's by his team setting him up to put the ball in the net in an easy style, or with him taking it from box to box and running past every defender on the pitch and then sliding in him himself. I mean, he's on fire right now. I hope he continues to perform. I think all of us right now are rooting for him. So,
and I will say it's like kind of refreshing for me, at least, when I watch these games and I see Rashford. You have Alex Iwobi on Arsenal. You have who else?
Kelechi Iheanacho.
Exactly. Like, you see these three players. You see how they behave, their demeanor on the field and off the field, and it's very refreshing to see when you compare it to, say, like a Paul Pogba, who's getting a new haircut, a new social media. He's got this personality beyond the court.
But I think one of the biggest contrasts we can make is with Martial on Manchester United. Huge transfer. And what has he done?
Point.
What has he done? Compare Martial and Rashford. You have a different mentality in Rashford.
Matt,
absolutely.
Do you folks think that we'll use Rashford and Iwobi as examples? I think they're both from very, very young ages. I think 7, 8 years old in their respective academies. And with Iwobi, it definitely shows, and definitely with Rashford. Do you think it makes a difference whether you've got a homegrown talent who's been in your club, or whether you bring someone else at a younger age who comes up through the ranks? Is there any significant difference there? What's the pros and cons?
I would say so, because you have someone actually playing for the team. You don't have someone who's come in. Okay, so Pogba is considered a homegrown player because he played there for 3 years when he was a certain age. But you don't have players coming in for big money. There were a lot of questions about Pogba's actual desire to go to Manchester United versus, just people sort of forcing his hand, forcing him into that move. But I think you have the respect for the club that you play for that lacks in a lot of players that are transferred over, no matter how old they are when they're transferred over.
I think you can say.
Go ahead.
I think you can say that about Dele Alli as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he only was in Spurs Academy for about a year from MK Dons before he was able to break through onto the first team. And since then, he's really bought into the club a lot. And you can tell just even seeing him with a bunch of the other players that they really get along well. And it feels like they've gelled as a team rather than him being a star on his own.
What about let me pose a thought, right? Let's say you're going to higher education, you go to university, you get a graduate degree, and before you take it, you're trying to figure out what you're going to major in, and you're probably 4 to 5 years out, right? So you have to project. In 4 years, I'm going to be in this kind of economy, in this kind of climate, and this is where I think I'll be successful. We've talked previously about identity of a club, and we've tied it with the manager. We've tried to tie in money into the philosophy. You've got a lot of these teams. How important is it for the existence of the academy if within a few years' time we're seeing this influx of cash that's buying players from all over the globe now? It's universal. What does it even matter if a club has an identity and it brings up someone through their youth? Is it relevant? Is it going to be relevant anymore? Because we've always been used to a united way of playing, a city which has been reborn. We've got a Liverpool way of playing, which is coming back from their glory days on the club. We're seeing Arsenal reinvented, Tottenham. We're seeing these big clubs, and they're somehow maintaining their identity. They have great academies, and they're always bringing this youth. But I fear that money is ultimately going to dissolve this. Do you guys agree?
You mean the playing culture and the playing styles of these specific clubs, right?
That's what I feel, because it's a combination of managers who are employed for their ego, for their personality, for their style, rather than taking a manager who's gonna carry the club identity forward, and also combine that with this kitty that they have, an unlimited purse of spending. What sort of incentive do they have to play the United way or the Liverpool way? I'm not sure what's going to happen to the youth in the future.
I mean, I can see your argument, because if you look at it from a management standpoint, right? I think just past weekend it was Arsene Wenger's 20 years of the club, and there's like a lot of these articles saying showing all the clubs and how many managers every club has had in the past 20 years. You have the Man City, Chelsea, whatever, like so on and so forth. But with every manager, there's a new identity, a new method of coaching, and every few years, if you have a new manager and you bring something new, what is the true identity? And for example, I think this is something we talked about with Sunderland last week. What is their identity? Are they Manchester Light and like Leeds United? So it's and I think very few clubs out there that can still hold on to that culture. They have the Barcelona, they have the Bayern Munich, that are very much unified in this is how we play and this is what we export. We export the Spanish style of tiki-taka, or we export the German Bayern Munich style of playing. It's just very trademark.
That doesn't come down to the manager then. I mean, that comes down to more than just who's running the first team.
Right. Those are more of at the management style, the club level, what they produce. But the English teams or English clubs, it's very different. It's more of the management style.
Well, it's changing though in England now. In recent years, they've been trending towards having a front office, a general manager who has more transfer control than the coach. So that's been changing a lot. So teams don't have that kind of unilateral decision making they used to, because now they're investing a lot more money than they were. So it's a big loss if they have a flop in a player. The other thing I would say too that's really important to remember, we talk about Barcelona, La Masia school. They produce a lot of great talent, and nothing to be taken away from that. But they do have a B team that plays in the Spanish equivalent of the championship. So you give these players regular game time against top professionals that are adults. I don't think you have that kind of situation anywhere else. You know, they've been trying to get that in England, but it's just not going to happen. And you know, that Barcelona B team does quite well in that championship equivalent league, which is Liga 2, I guess. So that's one thing to take into consideration. The other thing too is Bayern Munich. We talk about that team a lot. They have a lot of great youth players. Like Kimmich is a guy that's been coming up. I've been watching him this season. I like seeing him play. But they also pick and choose their opponents' best players and pluck them. I mean, it happens a lot. We don't think it happens, but you know, these top teams have been doing that for years as well. Manchester United in the 90s, they wanted to get Alan Shearer. They almost got him, but he said no because he wanted to go to his boyhood club, which is Newcastle. You know, they got Andy Cole back in the day. He was one of the top strikers, sharing him. So it's not like these guys just produce all the talent. You know,
I think
you can't just have revisionist history and forget that these top teams also purchase very good players that are the, you know, developed product.
I think it's interesting that sort of like another anecdote to what you said was Barcelona A, Barcelona B, that like these clubs have basically their shadow clubs in the same league or in a different division, which promotes their style of playing. If Barcelona A is in the Premier League, you have Barcelona B producing the same style of playing, producing the same machine. So it promotes that culture a lot better than, say, English Premier League teams or English leagues.
You bring up a good point, Wes. So in 2012, the Premier League started their Premier League Youth Development Program, the EPP. So it's the Elite Player Performance Plan, and this is fantastic. It kind of mirrors what's going over there in Spain, where you have an EPL2, and you know there's 2 divisions, and there's 14 teams in each of those divisions, and it's a mix between the Premier League Youth as well as the Championship, the lower division. So obviously there is a massive interest. There's a significant investment in this idea of a long-term strategy to continue tradition of these big clubs and their identity. And what I am going to put that down to is that is the connection between generations of fans. I think all of us, we like our teams because we can identify with them. We relate to them in a very, very specific way. Yeah, wins are nice, but we can argue, especially as Arsenal fans, that success isn't always, you know, for us the determining factor, right? I mean, there's no other reason. So it's very, very interesting. And I'm thinking to myself, as a youth player, I'm coming up through the academy, and they have tiers, at least in the Premier League, in their setup, where you start under 9 and then you work your way through the ranks. So let's say I'm under 19, I'm under 18, I'm just preparing, I'm possibly about to break into the first team, and I've been playing for 3 years within my tier. And I'm kind of confused if we take on a new manager or new ownership and we go in a completely different direction to what I've been playing for the last 3 or 4 years. You know, how do you keep that in check? There's been massive resistance from fans, at least, and to some extent owners, to select a manager that fits the club, as opposed to getting a manager who's going to bring in trophies. There's such a conflict there, you know.
Well, you could look at United. United, most of the guys that are the brass at that club did not want Mourinho.
Right.
Bobby Charlton didn't care for him. As much as they say Ferguson didn't really want him at the club. And, you know, it's great now that they're winning, whatever, but it's just not their style of play. And even you get a guy like Marwan, our friend, he will admit, you know, with much, you know, I guess, consternation, that he's not really the guy he wanted at his club. So they're going to have to contend with that for now. We'll see how long it lasts, because we all know that honeymoon's over pretty quickly with Mourinho. He doesn't stand or stay anywhere more than, 3 seasons or so. So it'll be interesting to see that develop. But also, you look at teams now that have a front office that kind of creates this vision for the club. Like at City, You have Chiki Begiristain and Ferran Soriano. They brought them from Barcelona, and they've been trying to keep this oversight of the club and bring in managers and players that fit the club's philosophy. So Pep is Pep is their long-term target, and they finally got him. But I think that even if Pep leaves at some point, they're going to bring in someone that also still fits that club's vision. And I think more and more clubs are, proceeding to this point. Chelsea have a similar guy, Michael Emenalo, or however you pronounce it. And I think you're going to see it at Liverpool. You're going to see it at all the clubs. Arsenal too. And part of that is now that we're phasing out the really long-time managers, Wenger one day will go too. So are they going to give the next guy as much power as Wenger has at the club, or are they going to have to reel him in, and kind of have like a front office oversight over day-to-day activities? Who would you give that kind of control at a club when you spend that much money? The game's just changing.
Yeah, and it comes down to what you all picked up on earlier. It's very, very case-by-case basis. It's going to depend on the individual that's being appointed. What is refreshing is that we have this somewhat of a super league of managers. We've got this extraordinary league of gentlemen in this league at this moment. We've got Pep Guardiola, we have Jurgen Klopp, we've got Arsene Wenger, and I don't really want to throw Jose Mourinho and Conte in there because they have a specific style of football which is geared towards winning. Whereas if you look at the other guys, they have outrightly said that they want to play the perfect game. They not only want to win, but they want to win it with flair and style. So over the years, maybe we can say that many, many managers who have had that goal are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer, and now we're down to 3 or 4 who have that kind of ideal. So yes, once Arsene Wenger goes, once Pep Guardiola goes, I don't know who is out there as a manager who is leaning or biased towards great football. That's perhaps why it's important for the youth to grow, because as you've seen, we've got some of these players that we grew up as kids who are coming of age. Some of them are retiring, and they're getting into management and coaching positions, and they still carry remnants. They still carry this idealistic image of football that they used to play and carry on. So I guess it is important that it carries through the thread there, through the generations of players.
Well, it seems like that's just starting. I mean, there's a great generation of players that's either, on the verge of retiring or having just retired. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of there's Lampard's, Gerrard's getting up there, Drogba's getting up there. I think that generation that we saw really, hopefully we'll see them, they carry tons of weight for the clubs, and hopefully we'll see them come into management positions. It would be nice to see loyalty to the clubs that made them great. And I think that would be something definitely promising. But I think you make a good point with what you just said. Just that the fact that the youth players that know the club, that carry that image of the club, that play the club style, that's what's going to keep the club. It's going to keep that core identity going, and then you're going to see that transition into, they're going to mature as a player. They're going to hand that down to the younger players coming after them. So no matter how many times you change a manager, the team is really, the players, and having that interaction between youth and more experienced players, that's really, in my opinion, what's going to keep that going.
And, as I think of it, where I see that most strikingly is probably over here in the US. We're seeing great things from the youth, and that's going to be the differentiator that makes MLS step up a tier in its performance and its level of play, the quality. We're seeing great things from Pulisic and the men's national
Jordan
team.
Morris, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really, really quality, world class. Not just because we're being nice, but they can be up there on the biggest stage. And I think we've all spoken at some point about how impressed we've seen the US men's national team when they've been playing their best. So I think that's a really, really good point to kind of summarize and end on for that segment, that the youth is very important for long-term strategy for the club, for the fans, to carry through an identity. And perhaps that's why the club should invest in their youth and have a very, very strong and solid program. much as we've seen in Spain and over here. Does anyone else have anything to close on for that?
I'm just curious. I obviously don't know all the other Premier League teams and the youth players that are coming out, other than the big names like Iwobi, Rashford. What about Liverpool, Chelsea, City, and Tottenham? Like that are like youth players that are like up and coming, or like have played a few minutes here and there that have shown a lot of promise.
I mean, obviously for me, the most important player that comes to mind is Sterling, right? I mean, he came up through Liverpool ranks, and now he's experienced tremendous success, not just at Liverpool, but he's gone on to City, which is crappy to see how good he's playing. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think our club played a big part in developing him and making him the player that he is. John Flanagan, also one of the the more loved youth that came through that program as well. Unfortunately, he's
Jordan
not playing.
Ibe or eBay or Ibe.
Yeah, Jordan Ibe. Also,
for what, £50 million to Bournemouth?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I think when you do offload these players and you don't keep them at their club, there is some risk taken on the culture and some detriments made there. But at the same time, I think coaches really can be the stewards of carrying a culture forward. I mean, luckily for us, we found a coach who came from a parallel club in Germany. Same kind of fans, same kind of values in Dortmund as I think you see in Liverpool. So I don't think that the culture is necessarily being diminished by that. But having said that, I couldn't agree with you guys more about the impact of money, the impact of big clubs. I mean, big names and everything, just kind of altering really what we love most about the teams that we watch. That's going to happen either way.
I just want to close, and this is really telling. So I'm looking at the under-18s table for the Premier League, and it's split into two divisions, the North and the South. The North top four, under-18s are Man City, Newcastle United, Manchester City, and Middlesbrough. And then for the South, it's Arsenal, West Ham, Reading, and Chelsea. And then Southampton, I think I mentioned them, and then Tottenham below them. That's the top six. So this correlates with what we were just talking about. You've got under-18s, and they're at their elite level. These kids are at elite level, and once they're able to play for the Premier League for PL1, you can see this talent come through. And we've seen it in the last couple of weeks. We mentioned a couple of names that they're scoring goals and they're playing very, very well. And it's in the style of the team that's been dictated that they're associated with. Good stuff. Very, very good stuff. On that note, then, we're going to get to the most important part of the show. Let's get to the third segment and the straight red. Who is going to get our early shower? Huh? There's been a lot going on, Cass, and I want you to think very, very carefully. You've only got that one special red card to give. So think.
Yeah, I was at the pub last night, and I was talking. My big mouth started, rattling off a lot of information, and all of a sudden I realized it was actually people at my work who were undercover having a sting operation. So I got fired from my job.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately or fortunately for me, that's actually not what happened to me, but to Big Sam either. So, he got an early shower. He just got sacked from the England managerial position. Is in shambles. I mean, it's embarrassing. He gets my red card because, one, I don't know how he didn't know people were having a sting operation on him. Apparently, they asked him some questions regarding transfer policy. He says, yeah, the FA, you can do this workaround, the third-party ownership thing. And they have high turnover on their profits. They're not good with money. So you're basically talking about your own employers, and you're taking a piss on them. So I didn't think he was very long for that world. Also, have to mention that he made fun of Roy Hodgson and Gary Neville and Roy's speech impediment. Called him Roy Hodgson. So all these
classy
things
guy.
combined, he maybe wore his emotions a little bit too much on his sleeves. And England are left without a manager in a very surprising kind of turnaround. So we'll see what happens. Red card.
You know,
it's time for David Moyes to step up.
Groundskeeper Willie.
I think Gareth Southgate. I think Gareth Southgate's going to be in the interim. But you know what? What the reporters didn't know is that Sam was actually undercover, trying to expose reporters who were trying to expose England managers. So that'll be coming out in the next couple of days. It's incredible. It's like a Mission Impossible movie. He pulls his face off, and it's just him. That's a good red card. I mean, he gave up chewing the gum, and then it just went downhill from there.
I mean, maybe he could be Donald Trump's campaign manager.
Gosh, could you imagine that? Oh my word, Matt.
Bonus opportunity could be the manager for that.
I'm gonna sidestep that question, Matt, who's gonna get your coveted red card this week?
Well, this isn't just based on this week's performance. It's actually an accumulation of
built up.
Let's say the past 3 performances by a certain Gary Cahill.
So consistency, okay.
Consistently bad back passes, or attempted back passes, or slow, no sympathy. I mean, what are you doing? It's not the first time, give him some credit. He's a little slow because he's a big guy, but I mean, come on. Like, what do you
why didn't the keeper come out?
Use it. Oh, and then when he gets mad at Courtois, it's like, are you serious? Like after all that you haven't done correctly, and you have one mistake where it's miscommunication or whatever, like, who cares? It's in the middle of the game. Don't get mad at the keeper. He's the one who's suffering because of your defensive frailties. So just get your crap together. Like, don't pass backwards with your weak foot.
As the last man.
As the last man. Don't do that. Don't do that. So I'm just waiting to see if he's in the starting lineup for the next game against Hull. I'm really hoping he's not.
John Terry's on his way back, right?
John Terry's on his way back. Kurt Zouma, he's in training. I don't know what he's waiting for. I think he's still, horrible knee injury to come back from. So hopefully we'll see some improvement in that spot.
You guys need to get Ivanovic off the pitch.
Oh, don't even get me started on it. Don't even get me started on it. Oh my God. I've used this many times recently, but Slovanovic, as I like to call him, really, he had to go last season.
He looked like he was playing for the Gunners.
We saw this before from him, and he's done a lot for the club. He's been there for a while now. One of the key starters in the defense for a long time. There's always been a debate as to whether or not he's a true right back. I think he's done a great job for the most part.
He's a center back. Come on.
He's a center back, but if you're gonna, we're still trying to figure out the back line ever since Ashley Cole left the club.
How the times have changed, huh?
Oh, what are you talking about? One win, and you're like, oh my God, this is like.
I'm just saying,
the history is just
so
in my favor.
How Chelsea's defense have gone from being like one of the best to...
Oh my God.
Oh, but going from one of the best to one of the... it's not... You can't
just,
say that
it's like a laundry list
in the season.
Okay, Hillary,
Conte
Donald,
will have
calm
a way,
down. Hillary,
have
Donald,
some way to
just chill.
Wrong.
All right, cut it out.
I think just get him off there. Get Cahill off there. Get Ivanovic off there. Put in some faster players who are maybe not as willing to take risks right now, but who are willing to, to not be afraid to just stand there when you have some of the fastest players in the Premier League running.
I saw rumors of all these Italian players linked, the Juve players after Saturday's game. I don't know if that's true.
Why would they come to Chelsea?
I don't know if that's true. Just because Conte's there, it's probably just another rumor mill.
You had rumors about Chiellini coming. You had rumors about Barzagli coming. You had rumors about Bonucci. Yeah, exactly. So, Rumors are going to be
No.
rumors. You have a fine line of defensive players at Chelsea. They brought in Luiz again, which I think was a brilliant move. We know that he can pass. We know that there's some questions in his defensive tactics. But when you look at his performance on against Arsenal, against particularly Cahill and Event, well, both of them, it was just bad.
But the
I'm
one
gonna stop
thing,
talking. Let's move on. Let's move on. Someone else.
Let's move on. And I've been getting
Let's move
tired. I've been getting tired of the dab, and I think it's time that we start doing the face palm. It's going to catch on. It's going to be really good. Thanks, Matt. Neil.
You're welcome.
Neil.
Oh man, where do I start? I got a couple. I got to dish out a couple this week. I mean, first I'll start with the
Preach, brother, preach.
the suspect.
Do it.
El Mohammadi,
Oh.
you're stupid man. Can't believe you did it. Why'd you got to do that? Hull City as well. Come on.
I think we should put him on a team with Cahill and Ivanovic. That'd be a great defense.
Pretty good defense.
He looked like he had a great robot arm, though. I was like, that's impressive. But no, he definitely deserves the red. He put his team in a bad position, and they got slaughtered because of it. I also have to call out the former Liverpool Oni, Manquillo on Sunderland. I don't understand any of what happened. I mean, you're tied. You've lost momentum. All you have to do is kick the ball out, not make any mistakes. And this guy in stoppage time, 90th plus minute, decides to foul near the corner. And what happens? Cross into Benteke, who slots it in on a header, and they lose yet again. I mean, this is the saddest team I think I've seen in my entire time watching.
Just
Premier
kick
League
it out
soccer.
for a like a throw-in or something.
Do anything.
Anything.
Besides that.
Anything.
Yeah.
Handball. Just handball.
Red cards.
Handball.
Those are my red cards. They both got to go. They are
Very,
terrible players.
very well deserved. No objection from me. Good ones, Neil.
Yeah, man.
Wiz, are you going to be able to top that?
I don't know if I'm going to top that, but I do have one interesting and one not so interesting. One is going to be to Wayne Rooney.
Ooh. He's already on the bench.
He's already on the bench, and I feel like he's at this point in his career where he needs to figure out what he wants to do. He needs to make some life decisions, and I think time has caught up to him.
Declare a major.
He's gone from being one of the greatest strikers to being like a midfielder to then just not fitting into the team.
That's not all his fault, though, man.
No.
I'm not saying it's not all of his fault at all, but it's things like this you can be prevented. You know, previously if you look at history, players don't wait until they've become a shadow of their former selves to go off to other teams. Like maybe it was his time to go to another league or go to like Everton or like another
English
team,
players
you know?
don't go to other leagues.
That's it.
They have.
They could.
They could.
John Gerrard. That's very interesting because unless he butts heads literally with Jose, I don't know if he has much say in what goes on the pitch other than if he shows up, and he's out of position, so he's not in a good spot to do that.
Yeah, I think for me that deserves a red just because it's just poor career planning from his end. And,
oh my God!
Sit down. He's just take a breather, figure out what he wants to do with his life.
Wow.
That's cold-blooded.
Brutal.
My next red is actually red. I'm gonna give it a first yellow, and I'm gonna wait until the end of the season to figure out if it's gonna get a second yellow.
Okay.
That's a long time.
It's a long time because it's to myself.
But it's hanging over his head, Matt. Now he's in trouble.
Okay.
He's got to be real careful.
To yourself?
It's to myself because I have a foot and mouth disease with in regards to my comments about Theo Walcott.
I think a lot of people are going to get that yellow.
You know, I've given him a lot of crap over the past couple months and a while now, and it looks like he's actually stepping up this season.
I give you credit for
I
that.
mean, it might be too early for you to give yourself a yellow card for saying, that he's bad then good, because there's a very good chance he'll be bad again.
Exactly. So I might rescind that. I might just stop at a yellow. But he has consistently been showing a lot of promise the last couple games.
Yeah.
For that reason, I just had to.
Bravo. I applaud that. Thanks, Wis. Aaron, grace me with your red card contending.
I'll do my best. It's got to be Slaven Bilic and West Ham.
Oh,
Just
poor
their
guy.
performance.
Just pile it on. Just pile it on.
I'm more than happy to. And performance was terrible. To
Poor
take
guy.
what looked like one of the up-and-coming teams in the Premier League last year and just turn it completely the wrong way around. And he has about a month and a half to shape things up, because after the international break in November, they're going to Spurs, going to United, then they have Arsenal at home, and then the week after they go to Liverpool away. And that's a killer stretch of 4 matches. If they don't fix their backline problems by then and their midfield problems by then, they're going to be they've given up already the most goals in the league. I don't see how they can get through that 4 without having some serious problems. Maybe a few more comments about how much worse it could not get for them.
Aaron, if I asked you before the first ball was kicked off this season, and I said where are West Ham going to end up, what would you have told me before seeing all this?
Considering all the off-season trades coming in, I would have said probably 6th or 7th, if they're lucky. Top half easily, but probably pushing for a Europa League spot.
Yeah. Not looking very likely now, unless they pull a string of wins together. They're going to have to get 9 or 10 in a row to get even close. Wow. Okay, thanks, Aaron. That's been awesome. I've got to talk to you guys about the last couple of days. We've had these 2 people, very high profile, who've been going at it, and we've been expecting this for a long time, and it's finally the time has come. It's heartbreaking, I have to say. I've been torn. I've been torn about who to give it to you. Do I give it to him? Do I give it to her? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my card to Brangelina. Yeah, both of them.
Man.
I can't believe this. He's on the booze and he doesn't like it. Going to all the refugee camps and all this. I mean, get it together, because you've been together for over 10 years. You got to figure this stuff out. You can't be getting upset now. I think the world has finally lost its mind. When these 2 finally split up, that's it. It's apocalypse. It's over. So, Brangelina, get my red card for the week. I never thought I'd have to pull it out, but there it is. And on that note, folks, thank you so much, Aaron. Especially thanks to you putting up with us.
Happy to be here.
It's been great talking to you and some good insight. We hope to have you on again. I hope Spurs do awful the next few games. It's written down. I just have to read it.
I was waiting for that to happen. I was like, it can't stay cool the whole time.
Have to be nice.
Doesn't
feel my one thing. That's my one dig. All right, thank you everyone for listening. Please make sure you share, subscribe, send us any questions you have an email. You can follow our Twitter account as well. We're on YouTube, and we'll let you know when the next episode is up. Stay good. We'll see you next week. You think it's all over? It is now.